Well, hello everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. This is the Canadian YouTube creator, of course, also known as Jason Cosmic, RSSP Authority. RSSP, for you newbies out there, stands for, of course, Real Secret Space Program, way up there in space. That's right. I'm trying to bring transparency, and I'm trying to be advocates for the truth on, I believe, the most important subject of our times, as I always say, and that is the Real Secret Space Program. You know, I think I said in my last video, again, it was on the missing trillions, and that's what today's topic matter is going to be, my friends. The missing trillions from the US federal government. But you know, I get teased here in Canada, as I said in the other video, from my own fellow Canadians sometimes, because RSSP over here stands for Retirement Savings Plan, basically. But it's all about the Real Secret Space Program, my friends. You're going to see in this video that more and more of the economy is being organized and run, of course, to produce the resources to go into space now. It's being organized for the Real Secret Space Program, and that's where a lot of the missing trillions is going, my friends. And we're going to get into it, okay? I'm going to really give you my hardcore assessment I can. I've been doing real hardcore research to the best of my ability. So if you guys do think I have some genuine knowledge to share with humanity, of course, in my own unique way and style, if you appreciate what I'm trying to do to try to help us bring that transparency and truth, as I always say, together, my friends, we have got to do it. We have to provide sufficient transparency, and that includes the black budget and all these missing trillions and trying to figure out where is all the money going? Where is it disappearing to? You know, after being engineered out of the economy. You'll see that I use the term missing trillions, as Catherine Austin Fitts does, but that's a layman term, right? She knows too, it's to be engineered out of the economy. Now, people that have not seen my videos on the missing trillions, you'll probably say to yourself, well, who's Catherine Austin Fitts? And just before I give you the answer, guys, again, if you appreciate my videos, enjoy, I hope you'll subscribe, give me that thumbs up, hopefully. Find the church bell on the internet and hit it, would you? So you can be notified for my future videos. Now, after that ramble, let me just explain. Catherine Austin Fitts, as I said on the other videos, she's very important. She's a fascinating woman. She worked none other than in Washington, D.C. there under George W. Bush. That's right. I believe it was George W. Bush. And she was Secretary for Housing and Urban Development, HUD, okay? And so she was seeing a lot of the money disappearing. And I don't think she really realized till she retired sort of just how much money, of course, are we talking about. She's learned this over the years. And we'll get into the numbers in a moment, everybody. But again, Catherine is a financial expert. You know, she'll admit she's not an academic per se, right? She's all about the money. And she has a thing called Solari Reports, all about investments. And, you know, she works with the sellout, as I describe him, Richard Dolan. That's my opinion. You know, the guy who subscribes that we reverse engineer E.T. Craft at Roswell. I mean, give me a break. Even though Dolan's done some other good work, but not when it comes to ufology, in my opinion, my friends. You never need to subscribe to E.T., but it's a great way to sell books and get more clickbait and make lots of money, right? Dolan's making a killing, and he will not get off it. He won't tell you the truth that it's all military UFOs. You know, it's a damn shame that Dolan won't be honest. But, you know, and Catherine, you know, works with Dolan, I guess, with some investments, and that's fine. But Catherine is a woman of integrity, my friends. And unlike Richard Dolan, Catherine's a financial expert. She has reason, logic, common sense. She's not a sellout, unlike Dolan, in my opinion. Catherine, she knows it's got nothing to do with ET, my friends. We made the breakthroughs. It's all amazing human brilliance. We made the gravity breakthroughs all the way back in the 1950s. And Catherine knows, again, it's all military UFOs. She doesn't look quite as hard at the covert side as I do. However, she still has looked at the covert side, my friends, and she's even dealt with the covert side. So in those ways, we do have something in common. And she's had to, because the black budget, my friends, there's so much secrecy, as Catherine knows. It is absolutely off the charts. And we all know too much secrecy breeds corruption, right? It definitely does. So let me start out by saying, my friends, as I said on the last video, we have a significant part of the balance sheet that is both globally and domestically invisible. And again, we're going to follow the line a lot of Catherine Austin Fitz's research here, and I'm going to add my own flavor, of course, as well for you guys, I hope. And so again, we have a significant part of the balance sheet, globally and domestically invisible. We literally have, I describe, an off-world culture, post-petroleum civilizations, because they're not relying on gas to go to deep space, of course, and for all this off-planet investment. No. So, and it's, I would describe it, I always describe it, my friends, these are covert military civilizations. That's right. And in the heart of the military-industrial complex, my friends, and some of these defense contractors, like elements of Lockheed Martin, for example, this black budget technology, it is an open secret. It's just unacknowledged. Excuse me, my friends, I'm just getting some photos. I want to show you something. I've shown this many, many times, and we're going to do future videos again. I'm going to really break down the black budget technology, my friends. This is the TR-3B out of the Aurora Space Program, and guess who's the prime contractor? I bet you can guess, right? You got it, Lockheed Martin. And very few researchers know that, my friends. Very, very few people on the planet. And actually, the only one that I know of that talks about it is Michael Schratt, my buddy, the great aircraft aerospace historian. And maybe one or two other people have ever even mentioned it, okay? And you'll never hear Dolan tell you that the likes of this craft is again, the prime contractor is Lockheed Martin, man. And I'm going to break down this black budget technology. You know, I don't think Dolan has any noble intentions to try to help us penetrate this black budget technology. And it's so, so important, my friends. We have been lied to. And most ufologists will admit this. I'm glad they do admit this. We've been lied to for 60 to 70 years. They made the breakthroughs, my friends. It started in Nazi Germany with the gravity breakthrough. Then we know when the Americans worked with those hardcore Nazi German scientists, they made even more breakthroughs. And they had more UFO flying programs, okay? Military UFO flying programs. So the point being, these ufologists, my friends, they tell you the truth there, which is great, but then they always lie to you. And they spin it for ET. Again, to try to get more clickbait and get popular and make more money. Hint, hint, Richard Dolan. You know, here's a ufologist. I gotta laugh, my friends. Richard Dolan subscribes to this day that we reverse engineered ET craft from Roswell. Are you kidding me? This guy's a historian, like I've told you guys before, right? He should know that the Nazi German paperclip scientists, where were they brought into when the Americans made all those devil dealings with the hardcore Nazi scientists? They were brought into White Sands, Fort Bliss, and Dayton, all in the areas where the Roswell crash happened, the Aztec crash happened. So reason, logic, common sense, and the evidence points towards, well, naturally, you know, they were retained there as well, the crashes, where the Nazi paperclip scientists were, you know, doing their UFO testing. I mean, that's reason, logic, common sense, my friends. You never need an ET explanation. But these ufologists, like Richard Dolan, they love to hyperbolize and sensationalize the vague uncertainty of UFOs. And Linda Moulton Howe, she's another one. She describes, we've got ET walking amongst us, you know, and hybrids and all this bullshit. Richard Dolan even says that, oh yes, we could have extraterrestrials here. They might be under our feet. And now he calls them the others. I mean, it's just so outlandish, you know, these ridiculous proclamation pronouncements from ufologists. It just never ceases to amaze me. I had to get that off my chest, my friends. But let's carry on here with the missing trillions, because it's vital here, folks. And the numbers I'm going to come out with, if you stick with me, I think it'll blow your mind, okay? So here's the point, my friends. We have got a secret classified endowment of trillions and trillions of dollars that is literally disappearing like down a black hole, a non-transparent one-way mirror, okay? And it's been going on for decades, and we're going to go into a timeline in a moment, my friends. But we've got, and literally, you know, not only, what's extraordinary is not only how much money that's disappearing, but like I've said before, it's the dysfunction that it causes in an economy, right? Because we've got a totally overt financial system, overt economy, where for years and years and years, and even largely today, people have just been pretending this isn't happening. And I think finally now the good news is more and more people are waking up thanks to the great research from, again, likes of Catherine Austin Fitts. We got the great Joseph P. Farrell, the amazing researcher. He's been following in the line of Catherine Austin Fitts' research as well, just like me. And we're trying to bring transparency and truth and trying to dig at the truth, my friends, to share it with you guys of what's really going on here with the U.S. federal government. And this affects millions of people, of course, worldwide in all kinds of other countries, all right? And Russia and China, of course, are going to have their own black budget as well. But we know in the United States, the Empire of the United States, they have a significant off the main path black budget that is absolutely out of control, my friends. And it is the lion's share of the economy. And we're going to get into the interest and some of the numbers, like I said. But hold on here. So, and you know, here's the other thing, my friends. We're going to do a whole video on the cover-up someday. But, you know, again, I told you what's extraordinary is not just how much money that's disappearing, but the dysfunction it causes in an economy, right? Because the reality is, as the lies have continued, you know, they have gotten so outrageous, this whole cover-up for 50 to 60 years, stealing exorbitant amount of resources, right? Gold, silver, base metals, again, largely for UFO flying programs. They've stolen trillions and trillions of dollars from U.S. taxpayers' pockets. So that affects my beautiful people and my powerful country of Canada, of course. You know, this is why I get so, you know, exasperated too. And affects, again, millions of people worldwide. It's caused enormous depression, sadness, and heartache on people. We might get into that later on this video. And so, as the lies have continued, my friends, and by the way, the technology, before I forget everybody, as I've said before in other videos, it hasn't even been grown organically in the current U.S. leadership and government's culture in the military, right? No, it's just been transferred over. And largely some of these shadow groups are drunk from power from it. And it, you know, it's caused a lot of unethical behavior, unfortunately, for decades and years, year after year. And elements of the CIA, the NRO, the NSA, the Deep Black program contractors, right? Again, elements of Lockheed Martin in particular. And you got Boeing, Northrop Grumman, but Lockheed Martin, I've told you guys before, this is why I got a deep-seated antipathy towards certain elements of Lockheed Martin. They're doing a lot of unethical activities, I believe, my friends. And there's so much fraud, waste, abuse, mismanagement of spending, fiscal irresponsibility. I mean, it's off the charts. I told you guys, just on the F-35 scam alone, Lockheed Martin, my friends, it's the largest scam that they're involved in on taxpayers, gouging U.S. taxpayers and my Canadian people in Canada. They conned to go on in the investment of this Turkey plane, and now they've conned 9 other foreign nations to go along with it. It's just so outrageous, my friends. But this is the real reality we got to look at. And as I've always said, everybody, one of the reasons I do my videos as well, I'm trying to help us to cut through the misdirection, the lies, the orchestrated strategic distractions, the misdirection, and the psyops that the U.S. leadership and government put out there, my friends. When we're talking about the United States, and Great Britain do it as well. You know, my Canadian government, you know, do their own type of psyops at times too. But my friends, if we have intelligent discourse and look what's going on with the real secret space program, how the economy is being managed all these years, and the secret classified endowment of trillions of dollars, for example, for military UFO flying programs, well, guess what? You start to cut through the misdirection and lies. We can do it, my friends, and we're starting to, you know, which is great. You know, that's why I always say, I believe the real secret space program, it gives us a great stage to really improve our cognitive dissonance, right? We can improve our ways of knowledge about knowing things, about knowing reality, cutting through the lies. You know, it's so important, because the bottom line here too, everybody, is how do we grow a culture and society to ultimately to sustain ethical leadership, right? Well, if we don't talk about the black budget, we're never going to do it, my friends. We absolutely not. You know, and you better believe, unfortunately, Donald Trump, in a lot of ways, he's been bending over for the deep state and the CIA, and we might get into that in this video, or we'll do another video. But this is just an example, everybody. We need ethical leadership, right? And we haven't had it really since John F. Kennedy. We'll do videos on the great late John F. Kennedy. So now, after I said that, everybody, I just want to say again, back to the cover-up. This technology too, it's just been transferred over to, and again, they're drunk from power from it, They've transferred this technology and done all these illegal operations time and time again, all these black projects, the unacknowledged special access projects, very, very secret, my friends, and classified. And we're going to get into how the secrecy works within the aerospace companies in the future, mark my words. But so the technology, they've just transferred also the technology to all these private corporations, my friends. And we're going to get into how the corporations work when it comes to the black budget in a moment, okay? So, again, as the lies have continued, it has become almost expensive as the money that's disappearing, everybody, because again, when you're running a government or your business or, you know, a household, a budget, or your personal savings and investments, and if everything around you is surrounded by what Catherine calls material missions, and if you don't have a basic math, in other words, a financial reality and economic reality, you're in a whole world of hurt, right? Absolutely, because we have to understand, my friends, as I'm saying, more and more of the economy, particularly in the US, and again, even in Canada here and many other countries, more and more of the economy is being organized and driven by this phenomenon. The phenomenon I describe as for military UFO flying programs. And that means, you know, obviously to build the whole infrastructure. We've got some researchers even estimate, get this, my friends, that the United States may have up to 2,000 underground bases. Absolutely. You talk about a lot of secret technology development. You can imagine all the hideous activities probably going on in these underground bases, and a lot of slave labor to build it too, my friends. Mark my words. We'll get into that in future videos. But also, we have under ocean facilities worldwide, my friends. These are known facts that most people don't look at. Even the great Catherine Austin Fitch, you know, I found it interesting. One of the many interesting things that she stated was, if you look at the mining stocks, the behavior of them the last 50 plus years, she suspects, and I do too as well, my friends, they're not just mining gold, silver, base metals. Often they're mining under ocean facilities. It's a great place to hide. And as I've always told you guys, and I've shown you on future videos, the Navy is spearheading largely on the military branch. They are spearheading and in charge of the real secret space program. They absolutely are. And one other thing, my friends, and we'll get back to the money. But NASA, I've always said, they are just a cover for the NRO and the Air Force space programs. And the NRO and the Air Force, they're a cover for a much more highly classified covert space program. And again, that's the Navy. And very few researchers know that. Although more people are starting to realize it, because even on the patches, it says Naval Space Command, okay? It shows you they've got a huge presence in space. And you'll never, ever hear Donald Trump, unfortunately, telling you the real truth of what's going on with the real secret space program. And you'll never hear him tell you, for example, that the Navy's spearheading. They've got literally cigar-shaped craft released at nighttime. You could see it from photos from the Hubble telescope. They are literally the size of small cities. It's on my wall. I've done videos in my apartment before, everybody, in my home. And they are literally 1.5 miles to 2 miles or more they've been measured. And they're all the way in the rings of Saturn. And I've been asking myself for years, why are they in the rings of Saturn? You know, there are numerous photos taken of these things. And I suspect it's a mining mission, my friends. Okay? That was taken in 1985. That could be the first mining mission. All right? Again, we've got to keep in mind, my friends, the military, you know, people have always said they're at least 30 to 40 years ahead of the general public. Well, I think they're at least 100 years ahead, some researchers think now. Actually, Billy Carson, who owns his own space company called First Class Space Agency, he's being told by people within the aerospace community, because again, he owns his own space company, so he's talking to people that you and I will never be able to speak with, but he's being told they're 300 years ahead. Now, I hope that's a slight exaggeration, but I think it's very reasonable to conclude, just based on even the cigar-shaped craft all the way in the rings of Saturn and this amazing technology, they're probably 100 years ahead in some regards. And we've got to bridge that gap, my friends. We have to close that gap. We deserve the truth on this black budget technology, to utilize it for ourselves, my friends. We absolutely do, because it's all about how do we beautify this planet? Well, this technology will do that, my friends. As I've always said, it's going to get us off stinky oil, gas, coal, nuclear. Researchers will tell you that. Any researcher worth a grain of salt that looks at this, and you won't need a centralized utility bill, in other words. Isn't that amazing? You better believe it. So let's get back to the missing trillions here, my friends. If I'm talking a little quickly, it's just because there's a lot to cover here, okay? So I'm trying to get at this, but hopefully I'm being clear. So, Now, again, my friends, I think, you know what, and Catherine agrees, most financial experts, you know, real financial experts, even on TV commentators, the one thing they don't understand that makes Catherine unique in this way, and what's great about her knowledge base here is most financial experts, they don't understand, or they underestimate the United States covert weaponry, again, in space, what's going on, all the kinetic weapons and etc. that they've got up there, which is crucial, by the way. Whatever the United States have, it is crucial to sort of preserving the U.S. reserve currency, all right? But we need a policy discussion. Like I said, my friends, it's time to make this transparent, a lot of this, okay? Particularly military UFO flying programs. But like I said, most financial experts, they underestimate and or do not understand the U.S. covert weaponry. That means the military and intelligence capability and the global management of the whole economy. They don't understand. They don't look at the covert side or deal with it, and don't look at military UFO flying programs and the black budget. And you have to look at it, everybody, right? You know, as I've always said, and Catherine knows too, if we had real campaigns, and Dark Journalist knows this too, who interviewed Catherine numerous times, if we had real campaigns in America, and again, even in Canada here, we would talk about this, right? If we had real elections and campaigns, we would be talking about the black budget. We would focus on all these trillions of dollars. So let's get into how much money, because you guys are probably wondering, how much money are you talking about, Jason? Well, you know, what are we really getting at here? Well, here's the thing. Catherine Austin Fitts, just a couple years ago, came out with it's a magic number that she came out with, and it's a hard figure, my friends. How about this? $21 trillion missing since 1998. That's right. And this was covered worldwide, even corporate lamestream media, probably the likes of CNN and other stations. They had to talk about it. They don't like to talk about it too much, mind you, but it's a hard figure. You see, Catherine got the help from Professor Skidmore at the University of Michigan. I guess he had about 15 of his brightest accountants. They were going through all the documents, you know, in the U.S. federal government. And they came out with $21 trillion. Now, even as great as a number that is, you know, it's it's hard to contemplate that kind of money. But that's even a low number, because it doesn't even include other elements of the U.S. federal government. I think that's just focusing on defense. It was either defense or from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, okay? So, but just a lot of money there, my friends. And where is it going? How about another figure? Now with the bailouts of the banks, and Catherine said this numerous times, if you go back, I think her interview was in 2015 or 16, she said she estimated we were up to $40 trillion in assets shifted out of North America, you know, out of North America systems into something else. And how do you get to 40 trillion? Well, remember the bailouts of the banks, that's another 20 trillion or so, right? Because you had the pump and dump of the stock markets, quantitative easing, etc. And then you had the 21 trillion missing. So that's why it would be, I'm sure, pretty accurate. You got at least 40 trillion shifted out. Now in interviews in 2018, my friends, she's estimated we're up to $50 trillion theoretically in assets shifted out of North America. And again, I think it's an accurate assessment. And can you imagine, my friend, this doesn't even include also what may have been shifted in the industrial countries in Europe, okay? Now, she said when it was at 40 trillion, get this, take a deep breath, everybody, because this might blow your minds. It sure blew me away. Not only those figures, but here's another shocking figure. If you put, when it was at 40 trillion, she told Dark Journalist and other interviewers, if you put an endowment at 5% return, you get 2% a year, you can finance the global government on a private basis. That's right. And the interviewer laughed at her, at Catherine, this other interviewer, it wasn't Dark Journalist, somebody else. And Catherine said, no, I'm serious. So this is what we're seeing, my friends. It's unfolding. They're trying to finance a global government on a private basis. And we can see the push, you know, through the G7, G20. There's this push to assert a global governance system. Now, thankfully, they're stuck in the mud. You know, they've encountered more salt taffy on the ground, I think, than they were hoping for or expected. But and the $50 trillion question, my friends, and by the way, guys, I was invited on a live stream, I keep saying it, about a year ago, from none other than my buddy Joe from the Carolinas. Hi, Joe. We're loving, you're killing it. We're loving your videos, Joe. But yeah, Joe and I, we had a blast on the live stream. I think it was one of the most electrifying, hopefully informative live streams ever done. Again, it covered the Real Secret Space program. You guys can see it. It was titled, I think, Secret Space Program Controversial Interview. We've had probably almost 3,000 views on it, I think. And but Joe, I challenge you, we got to do another podcast again, Joe. You know, we could bring thousands more people and get people aware of the United States intel agencies, what's going on with the real secret space program. We could talk about the economy, again, all the activities in space that Joe loves to cover, and so do I. I look more at the covert side, mind you, but Joe and I, we have often the same similar goals to try to bring transparency and truth in a lot of ways. And Joe, it's been a year and you still have not had me on a live stream, Joe, and I can't figure out why. You know, I want to tell you guys, my audience, actually Joe told me, but I'm not sure what to believe here. Joe claimed, well, you know, he was trying to give me an excuse as to, well, I don't make money from my live streams. He was sort of saying, well, Joe, I didn't think you were all about the money. Obviously you need a certain amount of money, and I hope people are supporting Joe's channel. And you know, Joe, I pump up your channel, and rightly so. You're doing amazing work. But Joe, the one thing I'm also disappointed in is why don't you mention my channel and that I'm a hardcore researcher? You know, I just want to get this out of the way to my audience and to Joe out there, because I'm really struggling. You know, YouTube's not promoting my videos, I don't think, for whatever reason. I seem to be getting bounced off search engines, a lot of my friends think, and is it because I'm providing a lot of truth and transparency? I hope YouTube doesn't do that. YouTube, I compel you to please promote my videos, because this is so important. I'm just an individual here in the public trying to make a difference, trying to do my research and trying to understand how the economy is being managed. And you know, because I see the behavior, I see how people, so much sadness and heartache and depression that we all could see on so many people, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? And there's starvation. We got hundreds of thousands of homeless people in my powerful country, Canada. And again, there shouldn't be one homeless person. And the F-35, my friends, here's just an example, okay? And again, it relates to elements of the CIA. It relates to the missing trillions, because I dug into my powerful country, Canada's involvement, and of course the U.S. involvement. This is the Lockheed Martin's Turkey plane, the F-35, right? It's not even a good plane. But anyway, they spent over $1 trillion in the United States, and Lockheed Martin and other countries involved in this. They've spent over $1 trillion on this program. The largest weapons project in history, and for sure it's the largest scam as well on taxpayers in history, my friends. No question about it. So I dug into Canada's involvement. I did a whole series on the F-35. You guys could check it out. And it shocked me to the core that us Canadians, and I've been telling a lot of friends, trying to discuss this and do videos on it, we spent over $500 billion as Canadians. For 20 years on a plane we didn't even know it would ever fly. You know, unbelievable. We spent $54 million last year on this ridiculous plane. $74 million is going to cost us this year. And get this, my friends, this got me so exasperated, and still does. They want to be baseline operational with a fleet of F-35s, of course, for 18 more years, and it's going to cost Canadians, estimated at $551 million more dollars, over $500 billion again. Are you kidding me? You see where I'm coming from, everybody? All this money should be going towards healthcare, right? It should be going towards helping the nurses out there, beautiful nurses, helping out the sick. So helping the sick. It should be going towards getting better education for us younger people, kids, and everybody of all ages, right? To help improve the economy. I mean, it's just unbelievable, you know. But in the United States in particular, my friends, and again, us, the Canadian government here is responsible to allow themselves to be conned by Lockheed Martin. But you know, what I don't like about how the military is being run these days, my friends, and there's a lot of great military out there, don't get me wrong, and even there's good people, I've always said, in the elements of CIA, but there's a lot of shadow groups, unethical groups as well, my friends, and evildoers, and greedy, some of the greedy American, petro-Nazi American, British misanthropic money hoarders, as I describe them, and troglodytes, and petro-oligarchs, and kleptocrats, right? Because there's a lot of liars. But some of these shadow groups, my friends, again, they're stealing so much money, and trillions and trillions of dollars, and it's got to stop, my friends. We just got to call them out, and we got to stand up and fight the good fight on this, right? We absolutely do, okay? And we got to stop this F-35 scam somehow, man. It's crazy. You know, the United States, they always try to claim there's some global threat out there, or there will be a global threat. And I've always said, my friends, that is a lie. You see, The United States is all about defense contracts, right? It's all about garnering more defense contracts, trying to expand defense capability to get those defense contracts, getting taxpayers' dollars, right? Using trillions of dollars as well of covert economic crime cash flows over the years. And it's all about technology patents. That's right. If you go to the Federation of Sciences there in the United States, they admit over 5,000, they got 5,135 patents that have been seized, everybody. Isn't that amazing? And that's just for starters. I mean, this is how the elements of the CIA, again, NRO, NSA, some of the deep black program contractors, my friends, the likes of Lockheed Martin, for example, this is how they hold the rest of the world hostage. And they've been doing it for decades. And we've got to stop this. You know, we deserve the truth. So I wanted to say that, share that with you guys, right? Now, let's go into more of the numbers and the missing trillions here, my friends. I think it'll shock you and to bring awareness here. Catherine tells you, you know, in 2015, you had what, $12.5 trillion, I believe she said, missing in 2015. Fiscal 1998 to 2002, I think it was, you had about $4 trillion or $4.5 trillion missing. That's right. I already told you 50 trillion, and she's estimated shifted out of North America. And oh, I meant to say, guys, and we discussed this, Joe asked me on the live stream, and I'm glad he asked me this question, where do you think the $50 trillion is going, Jason? And you know what my answer was? Obviously, I don't know exactly, but I said, well, I think a lot of it is for the space-based economy, no question about it. You know, we finally have the whole world interested in going to space now, major space investment, space travel, space exploration, right? And I'm just talking on the overt side, my friends. I'm not even talking covertly. We all know there's basically a secret space program. And it's massive and it's trans-international, my friends. As I've always said, this technology is trans-international. Russia and China have UFO flying programs as well, military UFO flying programs, no question about it. And they've got those black triangles, the TR-3B. I've discussed in other videos. So I think the $50 trillion question, my friends, also I answered it by, of course, we have underground, under-ocean bases worldwide. That's a lot of where the money's going as well. And so I will put it to you guys this way. The $50 trillion, again, estimated shift out of North America systems. The question is, how much is it for off-planet investment, in other words, and that a lot of it is, I think the majority, versus how much is it to re-engineer the North American economy? Because I think the good news is that some of the ethical groups, hopefully, you know, within these structures of secrecy, the CIA, NRO, NSA, the deep black program contractors, some of them do want to make America great again. And I hope Donald Trump, in his heart of hearts, does want to make America great again, you know? But, and so, how much is it for off-planet investment? How much is it to re-engineer North America's economy versus how much is it to assert a global governance, you know, of the whole earth? Like I said, the G7, G20 has been a push to try to do that. And again, thankfully, they're stuck in the mud. You know, because again, my friends, we've got to, do we want to continue to let the CIA shape in our future? Because that's what's going on largely, you know? If we don't bring awareness to the United States intel agencies and what's really going on and around the world, you know, then that's what we're going to be doing, is letting the CIA, elements of them, to shape in more and more of our future. And that means holding us back largely of what's going on with real reality and with the real secret space program. And again, that means we've got to call out some of these defense contractors and get the truth, like what's going on in Believe that, right? So, here's some more numbers here, my friends, that hopefully you might find shocking. Again, I find it so enlightening, you know, to talk about and look at Catherine's encapsulated view there in Washington back in the day, right? So, and when she was Secretary of Federal Housing, the Housing and Urban Development there, she tells you that she and a group of people, I guess, they got, of course, a law passed for governments to provide financial and audit statements, right? And so what they came up was something called undockable adjustments. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what is an undockable adjustment? Well, let's say you got $2,000 in your bank account, right? The bank sends you a statement saying you have $500. Instead of figuring out where the difference came from, you send a statement saying you got $1,500, right? And voila, you've balanced your checkbook, you know, your bank account. So since that process started in 1998, I was shocked to hear this too. Catherine says she's told you that there's over $12 trillion in undocumentable adjustments we're up to. And again, that interview was a couple years ago, so it's more than that now. I mean, it's just extraordinary, right? These numbers, there's so much money, and the 50 trillion, for example, it's so much money it's hard to even contemplate. But my friends, it's happening, and it's been happening year after year after year. You know, we don't, you taxpayers out there, you don't want to have your pockets gouged, do you? And you know, everybody else that's caused so much heartache, depression, and sadness, and making people, you know, poor and financially stressed out, it doesn't have to be that way, my friends. We just have to have intelligent discourse, you know, and talk about it, coalesce our ideas and thinking, right? So we can't, because if we do that, my friends, I truly believe if we take a hard look at the real secret space program, and if we get more of us together to talk about it, that is how ultimately we will make a cultural shift, a cultural drive. We can facilitate, as I've always said, a profound, positive, transformative change in our world, my friends. We absolutely can. You see, I'm not just trying to talk all negative. I'm telling you, there's a silver lining in all this, my friends. We just have to get together. We can get our power and sovereignty back, in other words. There's no question about it, my friends. We can have global vigilance for victory. Because I'm telling you, when we get this black budget technology, my friends, I've told you before, my life goal is to try to help penetrate this black budget technology for us. And the only other guy on this planet that I see trying to do the same thing is Michael Schratt, the great aerospace historian, and also Billy Carson in his own way is trying to do that a little bit as well. So I like to say that I think all three of us we're sort of galactic agents trying to fight for the freedom of humanity. And if Joe, my buddy Joe from the Carolinas, hi Joe, if you would talk more about ethical leadership and what it takes to sustain ethical leadership and grow a culture in society to sustain ethical leadership, and maybe call out the CIA once in a while, or at least talk about ethical leadership, then I would include Joe in that equation. So I'm just trying to help compel my buddy Joe, maybe, Joe again, get me on the live stream so we could talk about some of these important issues together. You know, because I don't want to sound too conceited, but I don't think there's quite like having two charismatic guys bouncing their ideas off one another, using the YouTube platforms, which I'm thankful for, that we use these YouTube platforms, and Joe and I do it respectfully. There's a lot of people on YouTube that are spouting off, you know, swearing. They need to get their mouths washed, you know. It's okay to swear once in a while, but there's a lot of people, you know, and spouting out a lot of garbage, you know, and things that are not that important either, you know. Although, you know, it's great to have different interests, you know, don't get me wrong, but, you know, Joe and I, when we did that live stream, everyone, I'll just give you a quick example. Sometimes elements of the CIA, actually a lot of the time, what they can't stand, and you can go back to the late John F. Kennedy, he was another example, my friends, but when you got two charismatic guys like Joe and I, and when you got people like that, and John F. Kennedy was this way, of course, you know, I wasn't a leader like John F. Kennedy, but I'm just saying, when you have charismatic guys that can yield and use their power in real, authentic ways, that's when some of these elements, I believe, of these organizations and these unethical groups, that's when they start to feel threatened, you know what I mean? Or they at least perceive it that way, and if they want to pull diva moves, then they may, you know, they tried to take out, and they did take out John F. Kennedy. We know the CIA had the fingerprints all over that unfortunately horrendous murder. We'll talk about that perhaps in future videos. But, you know, when Joe and I did our live stream, my friends, Joe got a gardening video strike, you know, and he had, his last gardening video was over a year prior to that. Yes, I mean, how do you violate community standards in a gardening video? But anyway, I don't have the answers for it. Something happened there, and since then, Joe and I have never done another live stream again. And sometimes I wonder, is that why, Joe, you haven't done another live stream with me? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but anyway, I just had to express that with you guys and share that with you. I thought it was important, okay? But we've got to use the YouTube platforms and Facebook and these platforms so we could talk about these important issues. I guess that's my point on that, okay? So back to the money here, my friends, okay? So I've talked about the 50 trillion shift out of North America. I've talked about a little bit about the military UFO flying programs. A lot of it is going towards this and for the off-planet investment, no question about it, right? I've talked about, you know, how do we get our power and sovereignty back? Well, we got to talk about these issues, everyone, right? We absolutely do. And you see, when you've got, here's another thing. When you've got this much government spending, government investment, and management, right, of the whole global economy or industrial economy, it's a material mission, in other words, not to talk about it, right? Catherine will tell you the same thing. This is why we need to talk about it and try to bring transparency, like Catherine's done, try to bring transparency in a real financial, meaningful way. And most people have not been doing that, right? That's the problem, my friends. And this is why I'm doing my videos today, to try to help us do this. And I give honorable mention to Catherine Austin Fitz's great work and her times in Washington and since her retirement, trying to bring awareness of what's going on here, you know? So we've got to get this money back on the budget, my friends. And, you know, I'll tell you some good news in a moment here, everybody. Oh, first of all, I've had people ask me too, where do you think where do you think a lot of the money is being produced? Like, how is the money being, what's the biggest source of income, you know, in America, not North America, for example? So I describe it this way too, my friends, and Catherine will tell you the same thing, right? She thinks, and I think too, that between government spending and credit, levered by different financial mechanisms and manipulations like you know, insider trading and other manipulations, that's a big source of income. But when you combine, in other words, the federal budget with federal credit, and what you could do with the Financial Stabilization Fund, that's a huge, huge source of this cash flow, right? And what's happened is, everybody, we're looking at a U.S. federal tax credit mechanism, and I've talked about this before. It's being engineered in a way to generate trillions and trillions of dollars, again, for an infrastructure of UFO flying programs, and basically for investors to control the most powerful technologies in the world, right? And whoever controls the most powerful technologies controls the planet. We know this, right? And, you know, like I've always said, when you've got, and Catherine will tell you the same thing, when you've got trillions of dollars flying around in our skies, that is pertinent to the manufacturing of our planet. And again, another reason why we need to talk about these issues, right? And what's going on here, the manufacturing. If we want to improve North America's economy, and for particularly for us public, the people in the public, then we need to talk about it, right? And there's a lot of good people out there, so we deserve the truth on this. So again, you know, I can't stress enough, my friends, a lot of this money is for military UFO flying programs. And we can go back to as far as 1947, of course. Remember the famous year 1947? There was a lot happening then. You had the military UFO flying program started, the crash at Roswell, never mind about Richard Dolan, as I said earlier, him subscribing, he thinks we reverse engineered ET craft. He knows better, my friends. This guy, he's not that stupid. He's got to know that was military UFO flying programs. But again, in my opinion, he's saying that because he wants to sell more books, make more money, get clickbait, get famous, and he's done a good job at it, hasn't he? Him and his wife doing their live streams. They make a good team, don't get me wrong. But Dolan, I wish you'd be honest on that. But anyway, so 1947, my friends, I've always said when you had the 47, and Catherine will tell you the same thing, when you got the 47 and 49 Act with those provisions and the Financial Stabilization Fund, then when you had the CIA funding moving in, that's when you set up the critical train tracks of basically government money. They had found a way to get an infinite amount of government financing totally off the books. And that sort of started in 1947, my friends, and after, right? And then you go to the 1960s. Remember Eisenhower, the famous Eisenhower, right? President, 3 or 4 star general. This guy was so frustrated at the end of his term, during his term, he stated, beware of the military-industrial complex. And you know why he said that? I'm convinced, because he wasn't getting the segmented, integrated operational plans and information of what was really going on, particularly in the black projects, my friends. No, he wasn't. And there's even evidence to support, and Joseph P. Farrell will tell you this too, that he wasn't even getting the proper information as to the United States going to nuclear war with Russia. He was being left out of the loop. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But again, that's what the elements of the CIA were doing at the time, my friends. It's disgusting. And so he was frustrated, and I believe during the 1960s, there's no question in my mind, this is when you had the beginnings of the covert military civilizations being established. No doubt about it. Again, more and more of the economy was being organized and run to produce the resources to go into space, Again, that means military UFO flying programs, building the infrastructure, the trillions of dollars of hardware, and lying to the public, in other words, all about it, my friends. We've not been told the truth on any of this, really. And then you go to the 1980s. Now let's continue on with the money, my friends. Under George W. Bush, he gets in, and I talked about this with, by the way, with Joe from Joe's live stream, and you guys, I'll put the link in the description. So George W., he gets in control of the enforcement line, and you add to that through executive order the ability to have this unended open flow of cash flow, basically, to go into private corporations, flowing to private corporations. You see, what's changed in the government structure, and it's a very dangerous change, my friends, the government no longer owns and controls the military technology, right? It's because it's all buried within private corporations, the deep black program contractors, again, like Lockheed Martin, and it's a dangerous change. You know, the government still finances the military technology, but they've largely lost control and management of it because it's all controlled and managed within private corporations. You see, the military, they often use private corporations that are affiliated and contracted within the military. That way they can hide everything, my friends, right? They can hide the resources, the money, the people, and that means slave labor, everything. They're free from freedom. They're exempt, excuse me, from freedom from how do I say this? They're exempt from freedom of information requests. They're free from public oversight, basically. And again, my friends, this is why I focus on the likes of elements of Lockheed Martin here, because they've been, here's an example of a defense contractor, as I've always said, that's largely been divorced from any encumbered responsibility and accountability, okay? And a lot of these groups within the UFO flying programs, it's the same thing, in other words, you know? And we deserve more transparency and truth here on what's going on, of course, right? So, again, I talked about the U.S. federal tax credit. I've talked about the money flowing in these private corporations. And now, you know, we go up to today, my friends. Catherine has always suspected, you know, when we had the massive financial fraud there in the 1980s and 1990s, of course, Catherine describes it. And remember, you had Ronald Reagan. He's building the STS, right, Star Wars program, which is the weaponization of space. You know, it was so far from the discovery ideal, of course, that the late John F. Kennedy was trying to establish. Kennedy wanted a multi-collaborative model, right? Joining other nations like Russia together to go into space. It was an amazing thing. It was, that's why they called it Camelot. It was the most confidence in the human race ever. And Catherine thinks so as well. She lived during that time. You know, remember, we were going to solve our problems. We were going to create peace. We were going to colonize Mars, go into space in a big way. You know, you had ideas like from Star Trek, and all this was supposed to happen, my friends. And then the whole space program basically went defunct, didn't it? It absolutely did. And the question is why? Well, it's because it went dark, my friends. It went covert. They were trying to establish, and they did establish, a unipolar model, basically a global unipolar model with the middle of the United States sort of moving outward. And so it was all about secrecy and consolidating power, my friends. And that's not the kind of model we want, right? We shouldn't want that. You see, that's why they took out John F. Kennedy, my friends. And even Catherine knows this, right? Come on. The NASA budget peaked at 4.5% when he was alive, for example. Guess how much it dropped to right after he died? 0.5%. That's a huge drop off. And even Catherine suspects it didn't just drop. It went dark. And she knows that's one of the reasons why she thinks they killed John F. Kennedy. And I totally agree. You know, there's definitely, and even Garrison in the investigation, remember during the Kennedy assassination, my friends, I'll just quickly share with you, he found out this weird connection. There was some sort of connection between the CIA and NASA and the aerospace companies. Because if you recall, for example, Oswald, remember in Texas there, so-called Oswald, the only lone killer, you know, supposedly we're supposed to believe. Well, Oswald, before he died, or sorry, after he died, actually, dark journalists found this out. Everybody in the coffee company, or a lot of people that he was working with, they all disappeared. And where did they go? They went to the aerospace companies, my friends. Again, it's showing you this covert space program, my friends. They've just been so unethical, some of these groups, in trying to keep this secrecy, you know. They're trying to, again, they've exercised and consolidated way too much power, and we deserve the truth on it, my friends, once and for all. This is just crazy, outrageous. We've got to break down the walls of this crazy elite secrecy, you know? So, again, my friends, Catherine, when I was discussing the financial fraud earlier in the 80s and 90s, she thinks it wasn't, you know, financial fraud and incompetence was sort of just a cover story. It was a financial coup d'etat, you know? And she's been trying to figure this out, and so am I, everybody, is why did we rebalance the global economy in the mid-90s in such an aggressive way, right? That was going to cause enormous fast change, heartache, and opportunity around the world. Why did we do it? Did we do it because the technology and the space orbital platforms allowed us to do it, or did we do it for another reason? And Catherine is convinced, and so am I after studying this for years, that we did it because, again, these shadow groups, but and I would say people, again, a lot of them within the military UFO flying programs, no question, but they felt it necessary, that it was very important that we have a multi-planetary civilization and do it as quickly as possible. And the big question too is why? Why? I don't have the answers for that, my friends. I'm trying to figure that one out. I hope it's not because of a big catastrophe that they think will happen or are convinced it's going to happen here on our precious planet. I think most likely, and again, Catherine suspects this too, I think she does anyways, I know it to be true, is that there's already a multi-planetary civilization. There are literally covert military civilizations that are all over the far side of the moon, industrializing the moon for decades, my friends, decades. There's absolutely no question about it. It started in the 1960s, during the Apollo moon missions, and even before the Apollo moon missions, they were building structures on the moon, my friends. And don't even take it from me. You guys can see it on the internet for yourselves, all the structures and when they were going up. It'll blow your mind. I'll give you an example, my friends, and on Mars too, okay? Billy Carson, who owns First Class Space Agency that I referred to earlier, okay? You guys can look him up. He's got almost 1 million followers on Facebook and Instagram. He's always trying to get his name out there. Again, he's trying to bring transparency, truth in his own way. He tells you, him and his researchers have discovered over 50,000 anomalies just on on Mars alone, on the one side, basically. 50,000 anomalies, my friends. And he'll tell you, you know, they define what an anomaly is. They have a certain criteria. And it means it doesn't fit in the background, right? And they have certain criteria, like I said, to show you that it's basically most of them are intelligently designed structures, they think, right? This is happening, my friends. This is real reality, but most people don't look at it. And again, there should be a policy discussion. Even Catherine, the financial expert, she tells you too, right? This is reason, logic, common sense. If you're going to have bases on the moon, on Mars, she describes, right? And it's happening on the moon too, but speaking of Mars, she says, look, if we're going to have bases on Mars, let's have a policy discussion. We need to make this transparent because you're sacrificing healthcare, of course, and all these other important issues here on our precious planet, my friends, you know? But again, these are covert military civilizations. And let me tell you something, my friends. We're going to do videos on slavery because I'm telling you, when you have this much massive covert off-planet investment, covert production on the moon and Mars, and believe me, it is massive, my friends. I am telling you, there's no question. You have massive slave labor to try to accomplish that, right? They're not just going to have, you know, some military personnel building all these structures on the moon and Mars. Are you kidding me? No, they're going to be using slave labor. Because unfortunately, you just got to look at the behavior on our precious planet from these groups, my friends. What is the biggest economic driver in human history? Catherine will tell you too, right? It's warfare and slavery, unfortunately. Okay? So this is another reason why we need to talk about the real secret space program, I believe, my friends. Because slavery, obviously, is always a terrible thing. Especially, can you imagine all these people that have been abducted here on our precious planet, going off planet for, you know, all this military investment and God knows what going on, but you wake up in the morning. I know this sounds wild, my friends, but it's happening. You wake up in the morning or whenever and you see Earth and you know you're never coming back. Can you imagine? I mean, this is what's happening. They take a lot of street people, I believe, too, you know, for this. And some people estimate in the United States alone, I think the number was over 500,000 young people disappear every year and they're never seen again. Now, I'm not saying all of them are going off planet or in our underground bases, because a lot's in our underground bases as well, but I'm telling you, a lot of them are, though, my friends. There's a great number, and we need more transparency on that. But we'll talk about that maybe more in the future, and I'll try to dig more research on that, do more research. But so again, my friends, we need transparency and truth. We need an awareness campaign more over the U.S. intel agencies, even dark journalists. I was glad I heard him say that once. And we got to discuss the missing trillions. Excuse me, my friends. So thank you very much for sharing your time with me today, my friends. I hope I was able to convey, I know there's a lot of information here to digest, but I wanted to try to demonstrate what I've tried to remember without reading, and try to tell you guys what I've researched to do with the U.S. economy. It's so, so important, my friends. Again, when you have this much money being produced in secret, right, and all this secrecy, all these lies, and again, then it just shows you that it's so important to some of these, again, a lot of them are very greedy, unethical groups, but more and more the economy is being organized and driven for this purpose, my friends. Again, when you have this much money produced in secret, everything evolves itself around that fact. And I agree with Catherine. I think largely the U.S. economy has been a space-based economy since 1947. And just in the last several decades, again, since rebalancing the global economy and stuff, we're watching the whole economy being organized and run to produce the resources to go into space, right? It's called the space-based economy, you might as well call it. And it's amazing times, my friends. It's a lot of exciting, I mean, we live in the most remarkable, exciting, privileged era, as I always describe, my friends. And a lot of this I would include with the space-based economy, right? We're going to be industrializing the moon on the overt side, but like I told you, my friends, when you dig at the covert side, it's so frustrating when you realize that the military, and using slave labor to do it, I believe, they have been industrializing the far side of the moon for decades, my friends. Since the 1960s, absolutely no question about it. You just got to look at it. And I'll give you a quick example of that, my friends. Even in the 1950s, there was actually, Joe from the Carolinas found this document. They had a document come out, I think it was under the Freedom of Information request or whatever, but they even stated that they had the technology to build military bases for strategic military purposes by 1967. And then they declassified it, saying that they didn't do it. Well, my friends, if you just look at the military UFO flying programs and take a hard look at the black budget technology and all the research going on in the 1950s, not to mention, you know, the hundreds of thousands of eyewitnesses, let alone millions of people worldwide probably that have seen military UFOs, you better believe they were going to the moon by 1967, my friends. And again, you could see with your own eyes. Just look at the structures on the moon. Maybe I'll show you photos one day, my friends. It is extraordinary, okay? So again, we got the whole world now interested in going to space finally. We'll talk more about the space-based economy. You guys can look forward to good videos, hopefully, on that. Fascinating ones, hopefully. And just a quick example of that. I think on the overt side, China admits they've got 300,000 people, you know, invested with space programs and all that. Russia's got 250,000, so in large ways, sometimes Russia is even ahead of the United States in certain ways, and they've always been very advanced and ahead when it comes to technology. And the United States have about 200,000, you know, overtly. So just amazing stuff here. But we deserve the truth on this black budget technology, most of it, my friends, I'm convinced. Particularly, again, the free energy generation propulsion systems. We do not deserve all these egregious lies from the U.S. leadership and government and elements of the military, my friends. And again, there's a lot of great people in the military, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about certain shadow groups, my friends. And we need to get control here over the CIA more, my friends. They are largely unconstrained, out of control. I've done videos on them before, and we might do more on them in the future too. So thanks, guys. I hope you subscribe, and I hope I was brought some more knowledge for you guys on the missing trillions. And we'll dig harder in the future, and we'll talk more about it. Take care, guys. Have a great day. Bye.